Hey, everybody. Welcome to another exciting session of Feedback and Friends. Do not worry, the mannequin is not my friend today. All right, I do have some actual people here, but I just wanted to welcome you, and hopefully this stream will be a little smoother. I apologize for those of you who have been watching the last ones where there's a little lag, but been trying out some new things between my OBS and my M1, and sometimes it goes a little wonky. So today, hopefully, things will be a little different. Let me introduce my friends. We have the always spectacular Nathaniel Wyvern. Hello, nice to see you. And then we have Nata in Furs, our special guest. I'd love for you to do a little brief introduction of your music story, who you are, everything.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I am very happy to join you guys here today, and a little bit about myself. I'm a electronic music producer based in London. I work sort of cross genres, but I quite like to create sort of dark synth wavy electronica, and I'm relatively new to music production in the sense that I made a massive career switch last year and dedicated myself fully to music, but music has been sort of in my life ever since I was a kid, and finally it all sort of started to make sense post-pandemic as many of us had a chance to sort of reflect. So yeah, and it's been a really crazy and fun journey to date. I have been working on my own project, Nata first, and I'm working with a number of artists, producing for them. So, and love music. Really looking forward to hearing everyone's tunes tonight, and hopefully having a great banter and chat. And hope you guys get something useful out of it.
Amazing. And if you're tuning in for the first time ever, we are ILBC, the International Live Beat Channel, and we are hosting a series of live electronic championships. Nata played at our very first round in Bristol. We have one coming up for the She Knows Tech Summit August 14th, and we are still actually looking for a few contestants. So please go to ilbc.tv/SKT challenge. If you are a woman or non-binary producer performer, you don't have to be local to New York. You can be a remote competitor. So we urge you to check out footage from our first one in Bristol. There's just so many cool videos from that, and Nata herself did this awesome showcase with apples as MIDI. So I definitely want to ask you more about that later, because that is just so fascinating to me. Our first up tonight is Itzik Kotler. Is there a comment request, Natty?
There is. They've said this is their first track.
First track. Oh, we still need an emoji, but I'm going to just use
the
confetti. First track award. Woo! All right, it's 6. So we are going to listen to your very first track, and congratulations. It's always a good feeling. really amazing first track.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting like even to say, okay, it's not mixed well, but like it's mixed decently, you know? Like it's like nothing is standing out, nothing is holding back, like nothing is poking out. Like I think just keep doing it. And Nata, I'd love to hear your take on this track.
Yeah, I like my first thought is it's just a really good structure and arrangements, like really nice intro, build up, like kind of the punctuation throughout the track is kind of all feels really organic, natural, so really well done. And it's really hooky synth sound and really cool vocal. I'm not sure if it's a sample or not, but it sounds great. The only kind of note I took on, maybe something to consider for the mix is maybe it's my stream, but I did feel like the vocal is a little bit too forward. But otherwise, yeah, I think this is like really awesome vibe, and it's in the genre that I like. So well done, like really impressed for your first track.
Nat?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can get better feedback than that for your first track. I mean, it's not your stream. The vocal chops are definitely a little bit too forward, given how low key everything else is. I think that's what's causing the issue in that regard. If you start bringing everything else out more, just a little bit, give them a bit of heft, then it likely wouldn't be as noticeable in that manner, and the vocals themselves I don't think are too loud as such. So but I mean, yeah, it's always interesting to hear people's first tracks, because if you're like me, you just add my first track was just adding every random idea in my head at the time, and then you've got the ones where people are more interested in the sound design, and that's how they got them in. It's like, you know, listen to like Skrillex or something back in the day, and then just trying to sort of recreate that really sound design heavy thing. And then instead of making a track that makes no sense sound design, like with arrangement, they just make something that's sort of really hard to listen to because they're just stacking sounds. This one has somehow just avoided both of those problems and created something that's actually relatively unlegible and pleasant to listen to. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, my first track doesn't sound this good.
I mean, I would say honestly, like you know, for me, this sounds like a finished track ready for release, and this is like really on like quite a relevant trendy thing for 2022 right now. Like release it, put it forward for playlists. Like I think you're gonna get this can do really well. So well done.
Very well done. Amazing. Next up we have FF4C. And what are they saying? Oh, shouts out to the Audius link. We love Audius. Natty?
Yep, they're in vogue with the Audius link. They said, I have worked hard to have lots of variation in this track, and I think it's one of my best compositions yet. I'm curious to know if you think all the elements fit together well, if the stereo fill is being utilized well, and in general, if the flow of the track feels right. I think the sort of bridge thing between the drop and outro is slightly awkward, but I also like how weird it sounds, so I'd love to know what you think. Smiley face.
Smiley face. Oh, thank you for the smiley face. Ooh, that's pretty dope. Nata, what do you think?
That's a journey. I love it. I love journey tracks. Like this is. I was kind of zoned out for a while actually. Like really soundscapey, really unique, really cool, and like this wobbly bass that comes in at the intro was just beautiful. Awesome. And like I sort of like wasn't quite sure where this is gonna go, and was very pleased to get this kind of psytrance vibes with the drop and the beats. Well done.
Yeah, I
can see this at a rave being played.
This is super beautiful. Yeah, I really was pleasantly surprised by both parts. Like I didn't want the build up to end. It didn't feel too long. And I think that's a big indicator of if you've kept somebody's interest, it doesn't feel too long. They're not waiting for it to end. Like people were like, keep this track going. You know, you really got them. Natty, did you go on a journey? Was this a journey you wanted to go on?
Oh yes, this is a very journey track. My only note right now, I mean, everything sounds super balanced. It's not harsh even on the high end. It's really comfy to listen to, but it's also exciting to listen to, and that's really good with a track like this. You actually want to be hyped and pumped and groove. It's got a lot of swagger to it, and I love that. In intro, while I find your odd synth design really interesting, it sounded like there was still a sort of occasional metronome style rimshot sample being used there.
Yes.
And it stood out a little bit too much until the build up when everything sort of clicked in place. Maybe have a look at sort of filtering it in some ways, or making it less dry at the very least, because right now it doesn't really sit in with the soundscape so well. But that was really the only thing I felt was kind of off.
Yeah, I really like.
I agree. I agree. Like there was some sort of like click type sound, and it was a bit distracting because like this, you know, the evolving synth was very interesting to listen to, and I felt like that one bit just didn't feel like it was just a bit of a distraction. But when the drop comes in, it makes sense. So yeah, I agree with Nat in that one.
I really liked the drop and the whole part riding to the end. Like it was just so driven, and it was simple, yet it was keeping my interest. Like there were enough subtle micro tensions and transitions to really feel like this is going somewhere, and I want to be there for every part of the journey. All your sounds are working together super well. Yeah, I mean, just that is a vibe. Keep taking us on it. I would love to hear like ambient interludes on an EP of yours. I bet it would be a super, super amazing, engaging journey. So yeah, thank you for that beautiful track. Who we got up next? We got Imagine. Oh, I love Imagine. Imagine I'm in Denver. We should hang out. We should get some tacos. What is any no comment? It says. All right, no comment. Mm-hmm. Nothing needed. It's Imagine.
Enigmatic.
Enigmatic. always a party with our homie Imagine. It's like do you have like a whole light show in your studio? I'm just picturing you in the basement, like having your own personal rave, because you always capture that energy for me. Nata, I don't think has heard your stuff before, so love to hear a fresh take first time. Imagine does say this is a rough idea, so.
Well done for a rough idea. That's really cool. It's kind of had this like sort of disco house vibes to it, which I really liked, and really cool like bass sound. I think you just finish your idea. A good start. Nothing jumped out to me as kind of out of place. Yeah, well done.
Natty?
I mean, I definitely agree a bit with Gatsky here that the drop is very mono, and it would be cool to have something with a bit of flair in the stereo field. But as far as the arrangement is concerned, you introduced elements right as I was sort of beginning to lose interest again. You're like, okay, here's a new little bit. I've heard a fair number of your tracks at this point, and you definitely love that sort of everyone's having a sexy fun time house music. It's like catwalk vibes.
Yeah.
But I could see people doing like fashion shoot stuff to this, and or in like a movie, that kind of thing where everyone's all stylish and fun. And
I like the track photo. The track photo looks like some sort of catwalk expressive piece.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're very aware of what you're putting together, I think, there, which is good.
Yeah, vibe-wise, it's great. Do you think it's missing some of the upper highs, Natty? I was sort of feeling like I wanted some more crispness overall, like on the hats and on the synths, like just a little bit of edge that's sharper. Like, I'm not sure if this sounded like that to you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've been experimenting with recently is something I hear in some like really techno-y sort of tracks. Where you do things like you have a really fast hat pattern, but you keep it fairly shallow and in the high end, and then you either filter chrome it so that it's like, or you combine that with like a stereo adjustment, like a flanger or something, so it's like zooming around your head a little bit, and use that like a fill, and it suddenly builds this little bit of slight edginess and energy to the tracks that you implement it in. It might be fun to play with that kind of thing, perhaps. Or you go with borrow from something like trap, for example, where you change up your patterns from 4 on the floor to something like triplets or some other division, and then you add a bit of syncopation that way. But again, you keep it in the high end components, because then you're not losing your bass center ground, which is always that 4 on the floor kick and the everything else sitting around that,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just doing some more experimental stuff with that main like bassy lead, like doom 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 doom, that lead synth. Just do some like Rift type automation. That's my new favorite plugin that I talk about all the time. But it's like it's a distortion, but it's got so many automatable elements to it and like effects that it's kind of an all-in-one texturizing channel strip. So I do like those kinds of plugins. Like Spec Ops is another good one. Unfiltered audio, but just like something to like do tiny little modulations on that line, so that as it goes throughout the whole track, it is interesting. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, good suggestions.
For sure, everybody. Thanks so much to Nata and First for being here today. It's so great to have you. We are Feedback of Friends, and our next submission is from Tara the Fair. Also, no comment, so we will just check it out. And general feedback, I think, is the best thing. Let's see if this is going to paste. Oh, it doesn't want to paste. Once SoundCloud. There we go. Oh, it just got interesting. I'm going to let it go for a bit longer. All right. So it's a little chaotic, you know, like I love wonky music, but the thing with wonky music is the trick to pulling it off is that you actually have to be like super surgical about cleaning up your frequencies, because right now there's like so much rhythmic variance, which I love, and this really cool wobbly sound, but like it's kind of uncontrolled, right? And it's going in and out, and yeah, way rough idea, as you said. So I think what I would actually do before even worrying about like additional elements or anything like this is to play with side chaining. You know, when I teach classes, I always teach this one class where like half of it at least is about side chaining, because there's so many different ways to do it. And a lot of people, they view it as a utilitarian thing. Okay, I need room for my kick and my sub, so I knock one out of the way. That's a traditional way, but you can use side chaining artistically, and you can create envelopes depending on what side chaining technique you use, which you can control to become part of the rhythm. I call it sculpting the negative space. So what I would do is go in there with like, you know, it depends. If you're using Ableton, there's a really fantastic Max for Live plugin called Duck Buddy, which was designed by my friend Slink with somebody else, I think. Sorry, I can't remember now, but Duck Buddy will let you sort of draw your envelope of what you want to side chain, and then you can experiment with having like a rhythm of how the silence leaves you, how the sound comes back in, and then when you knock your wonky bass against your drums, you can create this like synergy of rhythm just by carving out different side chaining. Some other things you can use, there's like Kickstart, there's LFO tool, which you can also use to side chain, there's audio side chaining, there's gates, there's so many ways, but I would recommend playing with ones where you can really fine tune the shape of the side chain for best results. And cleaning up, as Grade said, the sounds, everything needs to be cleaned up, you know, frequencies and resonance, like the whole thing. But I don't really want to go dwell on that because it's such a rough demo. I feel like when you go in there and you mix it more, you're going to do that. You know what I mean? So, Nata?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I'm not gonna like comment too much on a mix because I think that, you know, that is yet to change hugely depending on your arrangement. But it feels like you essentially have lots of great ideas, sort of all in one place. And I would recommend just picking a few of those that you like the most and focusing on those and just make them really fit together well. And actually, you know, all the other ideas you can use them for other tracks. It's a little bit hard to stay focused on a track with kind of your ear hangs on to different parts and pieces, and yeah, it's a very subtle line with experimental music, you know. So yeah, have a think of how you want to develop that further.
Yeah,
I think personally you have a choice between either emphasizing the whole percussive versus rhythmic bass thing, or you strip it back and go more ambient. You know, the jazziness will be more palatable by itself, perhaps, if you want to focus purely on textural sound design. Like, I mean, I really like that square pad that you've got sitting in the back there. I think that's a really cool sound, but it also kind of does one thing throughout the whole track, when you could start having it change in width and resonance and frequencies and the filters and all these kind of things to sort of spice it up in a subtle way. But then obviously if you're going to have really dominant elements, then you're not necessarily either going to require that or get away with it. So you got to choose your priorities here. And if you are going to go to percussive, you'll have to bring those elements forward in the arrangement so that they come earlier, so that we're not just slapped in the face with these drums when we're not expecting them.
That just reminded me of. Were you ever on IRC, Natty? I don't know if you're old enough for that, but
I mean, I didn't even have internet back then. Is the problem?
well, there used to be this trout command where you could slap somebody about with a trout. I don't know. That way, slaps you about with a large trout. That's just slapping the drums about. But yeah, clean up. All good advice for sure. Next up, we have Santiago. And what's up with Santiago? How you doing? It's been a while since we had you on the show. Really stoked. What does Santiago have to say, Natty?
Try to go back to my musical roots, capturing a chaotic. Sorry, I can't read today apparently. A chaotic last band rehearsal in the dressing room of the concert hall. Looking for feedback on the general cohesion of the parts, repetitiveness, and overall listening quality.
Sounds good. Oh, this is so much fun. I love it.
I sort of picture myself in a lounge on an island somewhere, sipping a cocktail. Chill wave.
Yeah. Yeah, good job, Santiago. I love the energy you have. I love like the atmospheric noise. I think that really fills in the texture nice, and it sounds retro while still sounding clean. I mean, awesome. I don't really like, there's just little things. I mean, there are times where, as it was said in the chat, the bass could be, they said pluckier. I think maybe just warming it up with a little bit of saturation, and then saturation. What am I, Porky Pig? Saturation. And then so that it pokes through a little bit, and just like kind of compressing it deliberately, maybe with a little bit of a longer attack. That can give you a pluckier feeling. It can sort of just punch the attack forward a little bit and give you that like that kind of knocky vibe. So I mean, these are just beautiful stuff, and I think vocals would be a cool thing to try, like have an instrumental and a vocal version. Natty?
I really enjoyed this one. It's so funky, and I think in terms of arrangement, everything makes complete sense. Right now, your main focus, I think, should just be on tidying up the production so that everything's as clean and punchy as it can be. Your atmospheric foley sounds really nice and is like balanced in the right place, so it's not interrupting the track. Keep that where it is. I'd pay special attention
just
to
me.
this that yeah, I can't speak today apparently. To that slap bass that was in that bridge, because I felt like it could have slapped harder. Um, it's close, but maybe parallel processing or layering in a second slap bass sample of some kind that beefs up the low end of it, so it's just a little bit sharper and crunchier in body, would be beneficial with that sound there. I am also in agreement with some of the other sounds could be a little bit pluckier as well, but I mean, obviously Isha gave some good tips on how to deal with that already, so I'm not gonna repeat her good advice. And I had a good time, so I have a quick question for Natasha here.
Yeah.
Um, you said that you picture yourself being in a lounge. Where would be your ideal location for this? Like, you know.
Um, well, I was imagining my most recent holiday, which was ages ago in Bali. There's some nice lounge spaces there where this could be like really fitting with a with a cool day rave. But like I've got very individual ideas about what a rave should be like. So, um,
So what did you think of the track? Any tips?
yeah, I really liked it. It was really, yeah, again, like kind of like journey type track. Really like the sort of the funky groove. I had a couple of thoughts about sort of how it came across to me in terms of mix. I felt like it was a bit like bass and sax were a bit competing with each other, like in the sections, kind of the core sections of the track. They both sound quite hooky to me, but I felt like that was a bit competing. So maybe think about kind of making a choice there. And when it came into the breakdown, the kind of bass was sort of a solo melody, but it kind of was not as prominent as what was kind of in the main sections of the track. So I just felt like there was quite a lot of going on with sort of how those instruments worked with each other. So it's maybe it could be just a mix thing in terms of like how and where the instruments are placed. And the other thing I was gonna say, I think this track, I don't know if you do, like if you ever tried sync, but I actually think this could be really a good thing to try to do with this track, because it sounds like I can see this, in adverts or kind of like branded videos. Like this has a really kind of, as somebody said, commercial sound to it. So yeah, if you've not done that, you could explore that with this track. Well done.
Yeah.
Way.
Totally cool. I'm loving this. There are always good tracks tonight. Next up, we have another regular. We have Grades. What's up, Grades? Good to see you around. And looking for general mixing advice, I believe, is the key.
Mm-hmm.
All
That's
right.
it.
General mixing advice. Well, Grades. Let's go. really, really nice vibes, some grades going on. Super, super smooth. I love that. I felt like I was flying when it dropped. It was super, super nice. In the intro, it kind of faked me out a little bit. Like in the intro, I was like, oh, the mix isn't really that great. And then it kicked in and it was much better. So I think it would be good for me if you had something in the intro that was a little more airy and hi-fi, just so that it doesn't sound like such a contrast, because the rest of the track is so great. I want to anticipate that instead of like being caught off guard and being, you know what I mean? Like I want the intro to build me up, and instead I felt like the intro could have used just a little more shine, so that, like, I know what you're trying to do. I know you're trying to open it up, but I feel like there's some kind of compromise where maybe you can even just have a hi-fi sound every once in a while to sort of regulate the standard that track is going to be at. You know what I mean? I know the fake out, like, I think there is a balance though, like maybe even just one sound at the beginning where they're like, okay, I know what this is going to be. So that would really be it, because I love the vibe. And I do think that after the drop, maybe like one more different element could come in, even if it's just a little bell or a little high top thing, just to keep carrying us, but to evolve it a little bit more, because it felt a little bit samey after that point. Nata nutty today.
Yeah, I'm not. I always have to like really carefully listen. Who are you calling? I love this. I like. Yeah, I was sort of like, okay, like in the intro. Oh, okay, yeah, sort of another, sort of like chill ravey sounding track, and then it just gotten me into the groove. And so I actually think I really loved the mix. Like just everything felt very much in the right place, and like a really nice, firm, sort of punchy groove kick. Yeah, like really enjoyed it. And I agree with Alicia on the intro, like some foreshadowing what's yet to come, I think would do good justice for it.
Natty.
Sorry about my camera going dark. I don't know. I've been trying to fix this phone that I'm using as a webcam, and I think it might actually just be crying permanently at this point. But oh well. I really enjoyed that track. I mean, it was vibey, but I mean, I think on your suggestion of something in like bell-like could be interesting. I mean, there's lots of potential sounds as well that would fit. Something like, I don't know, a xylophone, glockenspiel, music boxes. That kind of thing where you can still go pseudo melodic with it, but it's still clearly a sort of a tinkly, fun sound. Or you get triangle samples and just resample them and change their pitch that way and do something, you can go as weird and out there as you want with it. I think that what makes it feel like it's missing something in that range is that there's not a lot of interesting reverb happening with this track. You've got all the sort of the down tempo, mellow stuff going on, but then it's airy without a sense of space. So I think if you can fix that and give us that depth of field, that would then sort of resolve this track, because as a idea it works already so far. It's just leveling it up a little bit more.
Yeah, good
Don't know
point.
if it makes any sense.
No, good point. I mean, reverb should be interesting, and there's so many different reverbs available now and different techniques and ways to automate things. There's no reason not to try something like that. Yeah, awesome. I mean, loved it. Next up, frequency response. Is there a comment request on this?
Arrangement, mixing, and anything else.
Okay, let's check it out. Hey, SoundCloud, being so sticky today. 'Cause I'm lost without
house without you.
It's a very trancy day we're having today. It's interesting how sometimes people seem to follow themes without even asking, but it's cool. Yeah, I like a lot of the synths in this, but I think that some of them are too loud. And even when I have this turned down, this is actually a good indicator. If you ever want to test if something is sticking out in your mix, turn it way down and see, because those upfront sort of saw synths are quite sharp. So I think it could be volume, and it could also be controlling the resonance of some of those frequencies, because they are a bit sharp, and the whole thing is reading a little bit sharp in my headphones, which are, full disclosure, a little bit high sensitive. So I don't know what kind of headphones you got there, Nata.
I've got Audio-Technica, the 50s. I agree with you. I actually those sounds were quite uncomfortable to my ear, and I think there's just it's worthwhile fixing it. The younger, I don't know if you guys know this, but the younger an individual is, the more sensitive they are to high pitch. So you're in danger of 60-year-olds may not be listening to a track. But yeah, that's something I would correct. But I quite like the vibes. I felt like the synth sounds kind of there's clearly kind of structure of loops coming sort of one after another and developing well, but within the loops there wasn't much development, and so I felt like some of the synth sounds could go through some sort of modulation as they repeat, or melodic variation, and I agree that they were kind of just sticking out a little bit too much, sort of both on that high end and the mid-range.
Natty, did you hear that?
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And I agree, especially with the test when it was lower volume. That is a good indicator. I mean, the bass, I should still be feeling it more when you turn it down than I did. Especially with that rolling bass, you want to have it feeling in your chest. Am I hearing a duplicate of myself? I don't know. Anyway, another thing I do when I'm writing tracks that are more progressive like this is, after I've got my general arrangement, I'll have a look at everything and say, okay, where can I blur the lines between these bars? Because obviously, yeah, you've got your 4, 8, 16 bar divisions between sections, and that's cool. But you can use a mixture of signposting and fills to effectively transition between the sections without actually transitioning between the sections in a different, there's still the narrow divisions, but you're just bleeding one or two elements through in each section, or using it or altering it in some way, like in vocals you reverse reverb into a vocal to sort of ease the transition rather than starting on a sudden thing, because you get everyone's attention and not necessarily in a good way, and you can pull those kinds of tricks with everything. There's lots of subtle effects, and obviously volume automation is a good one as well, but you can just have some things fade into each section just fine and get away with it, because especially when it's there is a melody to this track, but everything's kind of doing the same thing around the same few notes, so there's a lot more room for just blurring all your elements together in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. I think so. Amazing job, though. Everybody's
cool vibe so far, though.
Really cool vibes. Really cool vibes. Yeah, the echo that you're hearing, Nadia, is coming from Nata's mic. I'm not really sure why. It's like we're hearing it through the speakers, but I.
Oh, really? Ooh, wait, sorry, my bad. I accidentally, when I was turning down my headphones, I accidentally turned up my master. Sorry about that, guys. Fixed.
All right, cool.
Brilliant,
Next up,
okay.
we have it's Arimith. Is there any special requests from Arimith? Now you're muted. Now. Oh no, you're not.
Just a
all right.
second. No, they didn't leave anything. Is the problem.
All right. Oh man. This is such a beautiful journey, another journey. I'm totally mesmerized. So, what'd you think of this track, Nata?
Yeah, some really vibey tunes tonight. God, like for Wednesday. I'm so glad I've got my purple lights on. This is so fitting. Yeah, I really like this, and I think there's a few things that you kind of to consider to really make this come together well. Like first of all, just I just really liked all these like retro flashbacks, the toms, very classic synth sounds, like amazing stuff. One thing there's two things that like really stood out to me though, it's kind of things to look at. It all feels really heavy on sort of C3 octave range, like it all just kind of feels kind of cramped in this mid mid range, and I would look into maybe pushing some stuff out like an octave up. It just feels really like kind of heavy on the lows and the mids, but missing a bit in the sort of the top side of the track. And the vocal sample or synth, I'm not quite sure which one that is, but it didn't sort of agree with me too well. It felt like a bit almost like maybe
mid-heavy
there, or
mid-heavy
perhaps,
too.
yeah, and mid-heavy as well. Like it's just like at that point it was a bit hard to distinguish like what's happening in the sound room of the track. But I think if those things are addressed, like this will come out really, really strong.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And for me with that vocal synth, like I was just thinking, because I've released a lot of like vocal based sample packs, like it can be very tricky when you make stacking chords of vocals like that, because if the voice, like the human voice, is not a perfect sound that you sculpt, right? It has its own different frequency balance, and maybe that vocal has a lot of resonance in one. So then when you start stacking notes that are close together, you get a build up. So, it's 1 hour in almost, and we haven't not yet mentioned dynamic EQ. This is another.
We need another remote for that one.
I know, a Feedback and Friends bingo card thing. So dynamic EQ will actually follow the frequency resonance peaks that you set, and therefore it will only tame them when they need to be tamed. So maybe like sometimes the voicing of your chords just happens to be around a pitch that is already very resonant. That's like the shower note. For those of you who are just like that one note that you sing that rings out because it's just that perfect resonant frequency, you got shower notes on vocal cords, so you have to control them. And I think that like having that like too much mid-range, that's what makes it not agree with Nata or with anybody. It just gives that like almost like that headachy, like there's just too much in that spot and it's not stopping. And it needs to kind of come in and out and be sculpted a little bit. But I absolutely love all the wonky synths. I love the way that it journeyed. I mean, I thought it was a really, really cool fusion of sort of retro styles with some more interesting synth techniques. Natty.
So if I'm correct, you haven't heard this one before, have you, Isha?
No.
No. This one was actually submitted a few weeks back when I hosted the feedback stream when you were on holiday, I think. So I've heard an earlier version of this, and I picked out a couple of interesting new things with this track. In the outro, you added a piano, and but you didn't add it anywhere else. And I feel like you could use that because it does. The piano you chose there does fit your sound palette. And you could use that then to occupy those upper octaves and use a call and response pattern perhaps between that and your synths, and I think that'd be a really cool dynamic to go between that mostly organic sound and your really analog synth sounds, because I mean even analog synths, because of the way they drift, feel organic almost just by default compared to say a digital synth like Serum without some tweaks. That's like you do have all the ingredients here just to nail the dynamics, and it's don't change the overall progression. It works because I mean it is a really nice and pretty track. Also, I liked the comment in the chat. It was not the pads are not just good; they're sparkly, elegant, sparkly emoji. I think that's a accurate description of those pads. They are very nice pads. I like them too.
Very nice pads. Next up, we have Gatsky, a whip, and there is a comment on this, I believe, right?
There is indeed. The vocal track right now is just a placeholder while I work with a friend who does a similar style. The vocal mix is pretty rough and distorted, so I'm mostly just looking for feedback on the mix and whether or not it's interesting.
All right, let's find out.
One more moment of this silence, the loneliness is haunting.
Wow, this was very unexpected, the whole thing. And you know what? I gotta say, like usually I don't like
That's
like rock
crazy.
and dubstep type stuff, but I think that the skill that you have in making these interesting drops, like when it doesn't sound like the typical like 2012 dubstep that you hear with a remix like this, it's interesting and it's futuristic and it's more sophisticated. Personally, though, I would like to hear a little bit more samples from this vocal, or I know you said it's a placeholder, so maybe you don't want to do this, but just to tie together the drop, because the drop is very minimal and simple. So you could even have a few more like little samples of guitar or voice or just something to blend them together, because they do transition well, but I almost like I want to hear just a tiny hint of that. So maybe when you get the final vocal, that's just something you could consider. But yeah, Nata, what did you think?
Yeah, this was really interesting, and I have a few thoughts. I mean, first of all, like I just had like a throwback to Go on Apes days, like with the vocal. That was really cool, like very unexpected, but in a surprising way, really fitting. So if you end up pulling this off with your friends, kind of a similar style, I think this is something you're gonna have something really really unique with this track. A couple of thoughts on the composition. I was a bit like thrown off by the synth-wavy intro, which then never kind of came back in the track. And like typically you want to sort of go with, 1, 2, and then 1+2 type of structure. And it felt more like kind of a 3 sections, but not necessarily all. The vocal connects them, but that's very much the only thing that does. So I would just maybe explore like simplifying that a bit. We just stick kind of to like the dubstep bass plus the rock vocal and drop the synthy stuff. Like I don't know, it just felt a bit overload of like genre mix. And then I felt you asked for feedback on the mix. I just felt, at least in my headphones, like the kick and the snare were just a bit like really really too forward, and then the vocal too much in the far back. Whereas with a vocal track, you again, once you have the vocal ready to go, you want probably that to be the main hero. And the final comment, I would say, sort of the dubstep bassy section. It feels like you were kind of really gone for that genre, and I would maybe look into how to say, like maybe finding some samples that are a bit more varied and a bit more kind of classical. That just felt like I've heard some of dubstep and bass music, and this felt like more like trying to imitate rather than be it. So again, all of those things are sprinkles that I think will bring this track together. But otherwise, like I just love this idea of this crazy mash of genres, which unsurprisingly just fits really well together. So awesome, super interesting to listen to it.
Nice.
It's definitely an interesting track. I mean, if you do want to keep some semblance of the synthwave stuff, maybe move the sound design for it into more of the dark synthwave corner, which is already a bit harsher and more aggro. Things like Perturbator, Carpenter Brute, that kind of stuff. Perturbator, blah blah blah. Perturbator. I mean, I think he's French or something. Or maybe he's American. I don't know. Everyone's all over the place these days. I think the word everyone was looking for here, for buzzword, like if we were going to play Scrabble or something, is continuity. There is a bit of a lack of continuity in the track, where you could think it was like, like the intro could be like the bleed out from a previous track rather than it part of this one, and then the middle section is kind of doing its own thing, and then the outro you go a completely different direction again. I mean, if you can't choose, maybe try and do 3 straight versions of each style with your original when you get the final vocal, and then if you like one angle the most out of all of them, then you just follow that. If you want to dip back into the other pools a little bit, then you can do so gradually rather than distorting the entire idea around different bits. Also, let's hope the DMCA please don't get us, because apparently that vocal is bringing me to the horizon.
gosh, darn it. I tell people don't submit this because you get us copyright strikes. We don't like copyright strikes because then the video just gets muted and it sucks. So please don't do this to us. Just give us originals. There's so much originals left in the universe. I don't believe all music has been made. You can do it. So hopefully Gabe O, our next up, is not going to give us this grief. What's their deal?
Just 2 seconds. So, I have been producing for about 3 months. This particular demo is a house track, but it still sounds a little too repetitive to me. Looking for advice on how to spice things up and to give the track a brighter and nostalgic vibe. Also, before I move ahead, that is the queue closed. We've got a fair number of submissions to get to, so thank you very much, everybody. If you haven't submitted, we will be opening submissions again for next week. At some point when we've cleared the queue again. So, thank you, everybody.
All right. Let's check out Gabe. So Gabe is saying this is pretty simple, trying to figure out what to add next. I think we can start going now. First of all, there's that little bell sound that came in at 2 minutes. It is not tuned to the rest of your track. So I would say, first of all, go ahead and like that little boom, low bell. It's not there anymore, but it came in right around 2 minutes. It's just like a slightly different key. So I would play around with that, tune it. The chip tune sound too, I'm not like super crazy about. And then like, just in general, I think it's tough to make this kind of music because you want to be nostalgic, but you don't want it to like be mixed poorly, for instance, like just because back then they only had X amount of bit rate. You want it to still sound fresh in a certain way. So I think for me, like the drums are sort of not having the impact that I want. They're not feeling like fresh and punchy. They're sort of just like being slammed down on a table. And I think there could be a few things for that. It could be like different compression, different samples, like sometimes just like changing out the drum sounds can really help. And just in general, I think that the piano, I like the nostalgic sound of the piano, but because it's not doing very many different things melodically, I want it to filter in and out a bit more, or maybe take a break a bit more, maybe have a section where it's just the bass and the drums, but not the piano. These are all kind of just, I don't know. Nata, what were you feeling?
Well, first of all, I want to say, it's if you've been doing production for 3 months, this, you really have done a lot of work just kind of learning how to use DAW, and well done for that. I think this particular track, going for this genre, probably will need quite a bit of additional work. And I think that the kind of the overarching comment, like not to be repetitive, Felicia, I would say, is this is going for a particular kind of expected vibe and genre. If you haven't yet done so, maybe do a little bit of like reference track listening and kind of searching for what are the fresh, contemporary, relevant, trendy sounds for this style, because some of the, like, a lot of the instruments just felt a bit not kind of the right ones for this genre. Like the flute was confusing me a bit, and I agree with some of the like drum parts. So I think it's just, you could make this work, but I think you need to do a little bit of like research on what is my reference that I'm going for to make this work. And I would say like the transitions between loops and the sections could be smoother. There was like in the beginning there was a breakdown which went on, I think, for like about 2 bars, felt like a bit kind of abrupt, and then with a big drop, like just smashing on you. Look into what you can do with automation, with some risers, with some modulation. Those are sort of like glue tricks that you can apply to bring this together a bit better.
Yeah, for sure. Nathaniel?
So while you were giving out such wonderful advice and feedback there, Nata, I was sitting there thinking about pitching of drums and percussion. Right now, your kick in this track is actually flat. If you look at the root of the track, it's like a boom, 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 boom. But what your kick is actually doing is it's a couple of semitones lower than that. It's more like a boom, 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 when it needs to be up a bit. Boom, 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 boom. And when your sounds, your percussive sounds, they all have a relative pitch based on their frequency response. And if your kick and your snare in particular, they're quite fiddly with this one, or out of tune, it'll actually make it harder to mix down your track properly, because they're competing in a space that they should not be occupying. So I would have a look at that. I think that's it's a little bit fiddly sometimes, depending on what you're using to tune it. If you have to, and you really like that sound, try freezing that sound. And if you've got, most DAWs come with some sort of pitch alteration on audio, you then reprocess it based on the frozen track afterwards and see how it sounds. As long as the algorithm is good enough that you're using, it should survive the treatment. But you may also need to then run some transient shaping. Also, make sure it's dry before you freeze it, because any effects will just mess up the process. But otherwise, if you're using a sampler, they often come with little pitch knobs for each sample. And a lot of MIDI drum kits also have pitch options inbuilt into the plugins, or like Contact or whatever else. So, there's plenty of ways of doing it, and I'm sure you'll find whichever one's most suitable for that sample. But yeah, pay special attention to your kick and your snare for that, because the kick is flat, and I feel like the snare is slightly off too.
Yeah, but for 3 months again, like let's do the celebration thing. Yay! 3 months.
Because it is a fun vibe so far, I think. So keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Speaking of keeping going, I just want a random trivia. Today I'm wearing a Glitch Hop Forum t-shirt. This was one of my first music internet communities that I co-created with my friends Glitchy and Scratchy, Dewey Decibel, and we had mods like Illgates and EPROM. Like back in the day, people used to give each other production advice. It was like a web forum, and we moved from this to EDMP Discord. If you're not on the Discord, check out the Discord, join the Discord. We are there all the time giving like production advice. I'll put it in the chat right now. And trading feedback all day. We do this once a week, this ILBC stuff. This is a connected community. And as you can see, I have a really long time of kind of being passionate about communities and what we can learn from each other. No matter what, even if you just started 3 months ago, you can make a great tune. And maybe even like the idea is better than someone else's tune. And maybe you've discovered a cool trick that someone else can learn. So don't hesitate. We love hearing your submissions. And thank you, of course, to Nata, our wonderful guest. Next up, who do we have? Fury.
We have Fury.
Ooh.
And are you both ready to put some coal in the fire? Because Fury would like to be roasted with our most honest feedback possible.
Okay. All right.
We'll do our best.
Some really nice mixing work, like really crisp and clean, and I really can't roast you much for that. But you said you wanted to be really roasted, so I will say you could have been more creative with your synth lines than just repeating what the vocal was doing. I kind of feel like with this kind of thing, I either want to hear them morph together as one sound, where maybe you're like hocketing between the simple synth sound and the vocal, or I want to hear the synth doing something different, because it's kind of weird to feel like there's two separate sounds just sort of stuck together, and that other sound is such a simplistic sound, it kind of makes it annoying, and it actually isn't annoying before. Like da-da-da-da-da-da. It's cute when the vocal does it, but when the synth keeps doing it to me, I'm just like, oh, like, nah. It's like a very up close kind of 8-bit type of sound, so I think those sounds are easy to get annoying if you don't vary them. So I really would have tried to take that, if you want that simple sound, to do like more accent type stuff or longer notes, or like stuff that doesn't interfere with the vocal but maybe complements it, or even at the very least try transposing some of those notes an octave down, an octave up, give us some like textural variation. So I mean, I want to roast you more, but honestly the mix was pretty tight and everything else was sitting in a good place. So I don't know, Nathaniel, are you feeling toasty roasty?
I actually have a comment that'll tie into yours that is a big roast. There's another song out there that on a technical level is probably fine, but it's super irritating because it doesn't change in energy level and kind of just does the same thing over and over again. And that song is Baby Shark. I'm sorry, but you've made, right now at least with this melodic composition, you've made a Baby Shark. Where you're just repeating the same idea over and over and over again. And while the idea in itself isn't a problem, because it's just constantly doing the same thing, it actually becomes, rather than an earworm, it's like an ear torture. Which is a shame. I really don't want...
An
like,
ear termite.
An ear termite, yes. I mean, there's lots of little... I mean, the focus should be mainly on just call and response, I think. It's like, du-du-du-du-du, and then you do something else, and then... du-du-du-du-du-du, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, and then you just sort of back and forth, you know. I don't know, I'm not going to try and write it for you, because I don't know what's visions in your head. But it definitely needs something else that you can then evolve. Like, you know, you can riff on yourself as many times as you need in different ways, because every call can have a different answer, a different response.
Also, low key, when you're doing like a major key and you're doing something cutesy, you got to watch out for the happy birthday syndrome. Like that, almost like you could slow it down. It could be the new happy birthday song, like happy birthday to you. Da, 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 da. So I would, you know, you can be a little less happy birthday and a little more like edgy anime, which I think is what you were going for. Are you a weeb?
I think Fury is a weeb.
Nata, got some roasting.
I totally agree with you guys. I think like at first I liked the idea, and it was like fresh the first kind of minute and a half, and then it just got repetitive. And I agree, like sort of the melody could vary more. Like I think it just felt like there's a lot of sort of sound design or sort of chopped like tricks there, which just kind of eventually got overused, so they weren't interesting anymore, and it's a bit of a shame. So I would look into maybe playing around more with punctuation, trying sort of a different version on the melody, just kind of spice it up like that. I agree with you guys, you know, that I think that's the main kind of downside. On the positive side, I think I really like the mix. Like it's just, you know, everything seems to be in the right place. It's more of a composition piece to look into.
Fear, it's not enough for Fury. It's not enough that we called him an ear termite and a weeb. I mean, an ear termite is pretty serious. I think you're going to have to be content. Do you live with your parents, weeb? I don't know. It's not even a roast anymore. That's like a depressing future of dystopian reality of a capitalist dying society. Anyways, let's move on.
Oh, it just got really dark really fast.
That was
Welcome to Black Mirror.
That was a societal roast. Sorry. And speaking of happy love snuggly, we have Salvati up next. I'm excited to see.
Now this is an instrumental, so it's going to be a little bit different this week.
Oh, I see.
Really insecure about the mix. Oop.
Keep talking. Yeah.
And some spots sounding too empty still. Try to picture various skyboxes from older 3D games on the N64 and PS2.
All right. Oh, what a magical journey you always take us on, somebody. I really, really like your synths and your percussive textures and like, honestly everything. And your mix downs get better every time I hear them. I really, really vibed with that. I was really like sitting there hearing all the enjoyable textures and like sparkly sounds. It doesn't sound too sharp. Sounds really good. The build up towards the end when it kind of went into halftime, that was the only part that was a little bit like, for me, I wanted to hear a little bit more because your texturization was so great on the rest of it that it kind of left me greedy, and I was like, no, give that back to me, give me that same amount of space. But I love this. Nata?
I agree. I was kind of got consumed by all the different just really cool like sound design and really creative like use of like detuned sounds. I felt like the frequency response was a bit off, like sort of pressuring a bit too much on like high mids. So again, maybe explore like sort of correcting a little bit of the levels there, or maybe spacing things a bit around the panorama. And I actually like sort of the hungry part and then coming back to what was in the intro. Perhaps maybe just gluing it together a bit better could help make it a bit more organic transition. Well done though. Yeah, really cool track.
I think that perhaps the glue could be something really simple as well. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be the same type of textural variation. You could add environmental foley, or there's obviously this is you say this is like some space with skyboxes and things, and that's what we're meant to imagine. Well, literally use that down tempo bridgey bit to take us there. Have, I don't know, maybe there's a tree or something on the hill where you can see the skyboxes and the leaves are rustling, or maybe there's some little insects or something that are chirping away in the background, just sort of all subtle like, and there's a bird in the distance and you can hear it calling out to its mate, or I don't know, so anything, a little water stream is down on that hill, it's going down the hill and you can hear it bubbling away. That can fill in for the richness of your synth sound design totally fine, because, well, one, those sounds are appealing to the human brain. Everyone loves those sounds. It puts you in a place of relaxation and ease. But they are complex enough in their own right to add that variety, I think.
I love this idea actually. Like, this makes, now that you said it, makes so much sense, because this track actually, despite being really synth, it actually feels really organic. And it always just adds so much strength to music when the vibes sort of translate directly into the sounds. And I see your comment saying you wanted to use birds, but then everybody uses it. Well, think about how you could perhaps get creative with it. It could be a bird sound that then evolves into a synth sound. Like you could really go kind of really experimental and explorative with this. So it's not that it sounds themselves is not what makes it repetitive. It's how you use it.
Very, very true. Very wise words. Amazing. Did you have something else, Natty?
I bet if there's an EP behind this, and I know that Savati loves making EPs in this sort of style, it's going to be amazing when it's done.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I love all the different styles that they're always using. Super cool. All right, Wami, you are up next. Is there any specific requests for feedback, Natty?
No, they just said, I'm just a music-making Slav. Ya, ya.
All right. Big ups to music-making Slavs.
That's me. I'm one of those.
right. Whew, some rave party, deluxe, fun, good time. I really actually liked the mix on that in general. I thought it was pretty like banging. I did find the track itself a bit repetitive, and I think there's some really good advice from the chat on this. Juicebox EDM is saying a few cents up or down in various spots could make the bass feel more alive. Jaskabo said needs a chopped vocal hook, and then you just grab the vodka and go nuts. Oh yeah, I forgot about the whole Slav music making
Slav thing, yes.
Yeah, I'm actually like half Polish and Siberian and all this other stuff, so I guess I sort of counts maybe. But yeah, as a fellow music making Slav, Nata, what did you think of that?
I feel the rave. Like I'm trying to place its style. This is like a sort of drum and bassy, just go nuts thing. I can tell this was made by Slav.
Well, it's hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I really like the mix and the really, really kicking kick. I agree with Alicia. It got a bit repetitive in the second part. It felt like in the first half, lots of like good ideas and good development, and then it just sort of got a bit like almost like as though you ran out of steam production wise. So I think like the vocal suggestion in the chat from a couple of people is a great idea to explore. So yeah, just that really, but nice vibes, good energy.
It could be really weird as well. Like I think you could get away with something bizarre, like just lots of grunting, like whoo. Just, I don't know, or chanting or something. I don't know. Just something. Go find the weirdest vocal samples you can, and just morph and form and filter them to death. And I think that would work quite nicely with this.
Yeah, actually, I think a chant could be really cool. I mean, all things seriously, just something to like break up the monotony.
And it sort of makes sense because the intro has a vocal sample, doesn't it, with a countdown? So makes sense to bring that back.
Yeah, totally. Big ups. Thanks to Jennifer, who just subscribed, Jennifer's. If you do that, you can also tip us through Streamlabs. That can help you skip the queue if you're tired of waiting. And it also contributes to us making this free. Everything is basically invested back into this project, the ILBC project, where we throw live electronic showcases. We do weekly feedback. We do workshops. Hopefully, I'm going to do some coming up. So thanks to our special guest, Nata. And thanks also to Yeah, I'm Here to Help, who is going to do a queue skip for their lovely donation of $3. What would they like to know? Any specific feedback?
They actually didn't really have any specific feedback as far as I can tell.
All right.
Any and all feedback appreciated. Thank you. And thank you for your donation.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And let's check out. Whoops, that is not the right link. SoundCloud is just being insanely beautiful today. I love it. Shouts. No! Stop loading the same track. All right. Last. There we go. Tribe 3.
You make me say
Oh, that was such
Wow.
yeah, did you love I love that. I mean, really beautiful. Yeah, I'm here to help. Says that these are original vocals. That is tight. Like, I would love to see you play live. Like, I'm just like picturing you playing that song and me just like zoning out in a field somewhere. Only like small thing, and this could be a mastering thing or a mixing thing, is that you have these beautiful, like, sort of affected melodic synths in there, and some of the more reverby effect ones, they seem like they're a tiny bit too up front. Like, they're kind of obscuring the lead vocal and obscuring kind of the rhythm and the bass of it. So right now, not just the bass is in front of it, as Juicebox is saying, but like some of those synths are sort of on top of it either. So I think that you also have to work on just balancing and keeping your lead vocal in the front. Sidechain dynamic EQ can be a thing. Like, you could have it just pull back certain frequencies only when you're singing and then put them back when you're not. Mid-side EQ is also really cool because you can mess with the stereo field, so you could carve out a little bit of those reverb synths in the middle and leave room for your voice. There's a lot of different things that you can do, but I mean, that was just like, I really wanted to hear your voice front and center. And it could just be, I know maybe we're all producers that do our own vocals here on this board. It's like, it's easy to like turn yourself down too much because you know the lyrics and you know your own voice, and you might even be like, it's my voice, I'm getting annoyed listening to it for hours. So you end up like putting it too low in the mix because to you it sounds different. But I will say you could have it a little bit more forward. What do you think, Nata?
100% agree. I mean, first of all, I just want to say I love this track, and to me, like, you know, this is a hit. You should go with this, release it, pitch playlist. Like, this is so spot on, so on trend. You know, radio plug it. Really, really, really strong as a composition, as, you know, sort of like a ready to go finished track. And I agree with Alicia. The bass line was overpowering to me, like a lot of the good elements of this track, and vocals absolutely the hero. Super impressed by your vocals. Put it at the front, you know, especially like with sort of you know, in this style, in a retro style, vocals tend to be very much kind of like front and center. So nothing else to add, really. Well done. Really impressed.
Yeah, super good vibes. Natty, what did you think?
I mean, I agree with the radio friendly. Sorry, everyone's been doing admin stuff as well, so sorry if I seem a bit...
No, the way you moved was really funny. It was like an animatronic sculpture. Go ahead.
I am a robot. I feel like, I don't know, I mean, you guys have all said the important stuff. It's a really good track. I mean, it definitely sounds commercial, and people blow up over this one, I think, if you release it. Also, I mean, I have a feeling after this, you're going to have a lot of people in the chat wanting to hire you for vocals, because they're very, very strong, and I agree. Pull them up and make them the center stage, because they deserve it. They're very, very good.
They are very good.
Yeah.
Banger 100%.
Also,
Banger. Yes. Totally.
yeah. And the next one is another Q skip. Jenna Fierce is very, very kind and donated her their prime skip, I'm not going to assume gender here, to It's Ratus, who just made me emergency swap the song. So thank you for that.
Did you paste it to me already?
Everything's all sorted, so you should be good to go.
This is the correct link. Nosferatus.
Yes, this is correct. Great.
Nosferatus. Yeah. I like this title. Is there any story on this last minute emergency swap track?
I have no context for this track beyond it exists.
All right. How very existential of you. Okay, so this is super interesting for me in terms of feedback because I was listening and then you said in the chat, hey, it doesn't get good till about 2 minutes, 40 seconds. And so you know what happened at 2 minutes and 40 seconds is pretty much all the feedback I was going to give you up until then got implemented. So like I was going to tell you, oh, this is drum and bass. You need a bit more like sampled breaks and a bit more like live feeling. And you brought that in. And I was going to tell you, oh, your bass line, if it's going to be neuro, it needs to change sounds a little bit, which is what you started doing at 2 minutes, 40 seconds. So I think that like from 2 and 40 on, you're kind of like settling into the groove. But I think that you need to employ some of those tricks before that long into the track. Also, bro, the sirens. Listen, like some of us have lengthy histories with the cops and the mafia, and we just get traumatized. Just kidding. I have no criminal charges on my record at all. However, I still just do not like to hear constant sirens. I think it's like you can, if you're gonna have a siren sound, try making it a little weirder. Make it a little less just like repeating police siren loop in your face.
Ambulance siren.
Yeah.
Fire engine siren.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that like if you do some of what you're doing from 240 on, like changing out your bass slightly, it doesn't have to be dramatic. You could even take the exact same sound that you have like the main intro bass in, copy it and just change it slightly and then just weave it in so that people don't even quite notice that it's changing, but it just timbrally moves a little bit. Because I think that's what it takes. Like I don't know if you're like how classic of a junglist you are, but Ed Rush and Optical's Wormhole, that album had a huge impact on me. It came out in 1998 when I was still a young'un sneaking into clubs with my totally doing legit things above the law. Wow, this criminal thing is just going to follow me today. Anyways, it brings me back to the era of that album. And I would, if you haven't listened to it, I would like sit there and just listen to it for like a couple hours. When I downsized my vinyl collection, I'm in the middle of downsizing again to possibly move permanently to Europe, and that is one of the vinyls I cannot let go ever. Like I still have the original edition, I have all the plates, and my god, like I think just a little bit of those, like having a few more weird kind of like watery moving sort of squelchy sounds in between some of those other neuro sounds would also give it a little bit of movement. You know what I mean? So as an old school drum and bass head, I think I like where you're going with this, but I think it just needs some sculpting and a little bit more like foley and texturization, because atonal is tricky. If you just use like 2 or 3 minimal synth sounds, it actually gets a little bit annoying. Like you have to have some more textures and some totally atonal stuff to break it up, in my opinion. Nata, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I definitely felt like the second half was a bit more engaging. I'm not like super familiar with this style, so like just kind of take it for what it's worth. But like the one thing that bothered me a bit throughout is just the rhythm section. It was just kind of the same beat over and over again. Like, and again, maybe perhaps that's the stylist. But I kind of wanted to just a bit of like variability there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little bit more familiar with drum bass, not as familiar as Isha, obviously, but sorry, Isha, you're the expert here. You're drum bass lady. Yeah, often with drum bass, the main progression is quite steady and consistent. It's the kick snare kind of thing. But it's the end of bars where everything kind of gets more variable. Lots of breaks and fills and weird juddery sounds and that kind of stuff, where it's sort of like doesn't always stick to the same tempo in those small moments. It's also just fun. Like, it's worth playing with those things because it sounds mad. And you want a track like this where it's all sirens and saw sounds to be mad.
No more sirens. Please,
no more sirens. Unless it's an ambulance siren, put one of those in next.
Or like, I don't know, run the siren through a comb filter. Use Endless Smile as a cheap way to sweep it up so it sounds more like a riser. Like, do like just mess with it a little bit more so it's not so obvious. That's all. All right. Thank you, Jennifer's, for subscribing, and shouts out to Ratis and everybody else. The submissions have been so varied and diverse, as usual tonight. Disco Dave is up next. Does Disco Dave have any specific requests?
Well, they said in the feedback they're submitting this for a laugh. But I mean, I don't think we're gonna laugh at you. Everyone submitted interesting things tonight. So I mean, have more faith in yourself.
You can do it. Oh.
Can't be the siren.
Sorry, that was me. Well, for making it in 3 minutes, I actually really enjoyed that. That made me feel triumphant and successful, and like I discovered some new level on a game, a new quest. Exactly. Natty, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun energy. I mean, the hard part now is turning it into a fully fledged track, I think. You've got your sort of main motif here, and now you just need something to counterbalance it. I mean, if it's a triumphant theme, then maybe you need a more down-tempo section that's sort of, like, okay, we've won, now what do we do? And then you go back to winning again.
Yay!
It's like you're playing slots at a casino, and every so often you hit the jackpot. It's like
Yeah, no.
I love the energy. I mean, yeah, can't complain.
What did you think, Natasha?
It's giving her a gambling addiction.
I just had like a.
I'm sorry.
I had a throwback to a very like random night I once had at Natural History Museum in London, where I ended up like accidentally at an 8-bit like disco party in a museum, and this would like fit in there right on. I loved it for 3 minutes. This is like awesome. Finish it off, go crazy.
Go crazy. Yeah, no, thank you, Disco Dave. We appreciate it. Up next, we have Really Ryan. A very special shouts out. Ryan is actually somebody who gave the original ILBC idea legs, because Ryan has a really cool live setup involving like a MIDI theremin, doing audio and visuals, and just very, very fun to watch. You may or may not see him as a contestant in one of the upcoming rounds. So, Really Ryan is looking for mixed feedback. I posted this a while ago. Really recently made the song faster and cleaned up the mix. All right, Ryan, we love you. Can't wait to hear it.
Hey kid, what'd you learn in school today?
Well, they told us in science class that our eyes flip the image we see in reality.
That's pretty neat.
No, you don't understand. What if this whole time, everything we see, everything we know, has been upside down? You don't understand. always flipping. And then your brain's all like, nah, flip it. And your perspective be like, flip it. And when a problem comes, we flip it. So what is light anyways?
Well, we still don't fully know. But isn't it nice?
What?
Always so much fun from you, Ryan. I
Wow.
I love this squelchy low end. I think you've got a really pleasing balance going on here. I think that with that talking vocal, there's some great harmonics, as Other was said. Have you thought of maybe trying like a vocoder to make some chord accents? Because that's vocal is like basically acting as your lead synth. So it might be cool to have like some accents where it's just like a chord inside the vocal. Definitely super original idea. What'd you think of that, Nata?
I love this. This is a really cool track, and I have some ideas perhaps maybe to explore with it. The love the bass and the texture of it, and the vocal as kind of guys been kind of in chat. But I kind of want to hear actually what's happening with the vocal, like what are they saying, and the bass line was a bit overpowering that. So perhaps bring that forward, and I was getting just really strong dub vibes from this. And one thing to try is to essentially to bunch of delays and reverbs on your return tracks and play around with it. Like it was just kind of missing that space to wrap it all together. So I don't know if you like were intentionally going for the dub vibe, but that's what it sounds like to me. Like a really cool sort of like dub bass mix. So and that what's missing for me is just a bit of like juicy sort of like spatial effects on your sounds. And I think that might be something that actually just blends this mix really strong.
Good idea. Nathaniel.
I mean, there's some fun comments as well in the chat about this one. I mean, what did FF4C learn this week? He learned how to be a Wook. So, that's a good riff on. I've heard this track. This is a resubmission, and I actually do prefer this version of the track. You've definitely improved it. It's a more coherent, cohesive idea, and there's also been some interesting division amongst the feedback tonight. I mean, Natasha, there you're saying bring the vocals out more. The bass is overpowering, and then you got Juicebox saying I want these lows to destroy the rest of the track. Now, I mean, doesn't mean you have to actually be in conflict. It could be just a couple of sections where you go really, really hard with the sub and just completely melt everyone's brains, and then you come back to the vocals and have them more prominent and understandable. because right now it's kind of like there's lots of interesting micro changes, but they don't necessarily form a dynamic arc with those micro changes. At times it almost feels like you're making changes for the sake of changes rather than with the idea of actually modulating your energy levels throughout the track. So maybe have a look at points where you can sort of maybe have less going on with the bass, and then when the vocals aren't so important or present, then you just go really mad with that and make it really crunchy and exaggerated. And I think that would push this to the level of Wook meltdown that you're aiming for here.
Wook meltdown. It's such a uniquely like American creation. It's funny, but I just want to say the second I got back to Denver in the airport, like I saw someone with dreads wearing a onesie and like just walking like half asleep, and I was like, I'm home. The Wookland is alive and well. So yeah, learning how to be a Wook, it's actually not that hard. It's you sort of like shower a little less, put your clothes on with your eyes closed, and instead of trying to get things through logical progression like working or connections or something, just expect it to manifest for you. So those are my tips for the week on being a Wook of the week. Wook of the week. And we're gonna go to our next.
You're gonna break me.
Ill-bred. Ill-bred. Is there any feedback that they wanted?
Yeah, this is Juicebox with Ill-bred. They said, I know the song is good, probably finished. Mostly just want to hear everyone's honest thoughts, what I could have done better, and what stood out as particularly good or bad. Thank you so much for hosting this. Thank you for submitting, Juicebox. We appreciate you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was Juicebox. I was just like, another ill. Yeah. Anyways, go.
You're...
I'm just not used to good things that last. Fuck off. I am living in the past. I was hoping in the day. I'll just stay out of my shed. I'm sorry if I fill you up again. I do what I must to get ahead. Now I'm seeing red. I am ill. So very ill. I never felt, I never knew the difference. I was born to be a prince, unicorn, to be so young and full of sweet innocence. I'll never tell you it's been a while since I was. I keep me in my place, getting chased. Of course, I keep my eyes still traced. Never know anybody until they're off on their knees. I'm so good. I'll be fine, just stay out of my shadow. I'm sorry if I fill you up with doubt. I do what I must to get ahead. Now I'm seeing red. So very ill. I do what I must to get ahead. So very ill. Yeah, I'm ill. So very ill. You got the cards with the green. Well, let me take you to me on there. I really want you to fuck off. Do I make you sick? Make you wanna cough? Being such a bitch, you just hit me off. Don't I make you sick? Make you wanna cough? Being such a bitch, you just hit me off. I can't get ahead, wishing I was dead. Someone led me to believe what they said. Do I feel you dread when I'm seeing red?
Wow. I mean, first off, I want to say that is such a cool, like, whatever you are doing, I would love to know more about, like, the way that you're modulating your vocal effects, because that was super interesting to me. Like, it was doing a lot of cool stuff. It was morphing. I agree with the chat that maybe filling the low mids would warm it up and give it some, like, punch in the chest, sort of. Like, that range is missing a little. But I really like the originality of that. Nata, what did you think?
Yeah, very unique. The is I wonder are these vocals like just really interest process on effect process on them. It felt to me like it was missing. Bring sort of the bass lines and the vocal together. Probably maybe something paddy, like perhaps maybe a bit too choppy for my taste. But again, producer's choice on this, but something to consider.
Yeah, I think
I'm in agreement there with the pad suggestion. I mean, this stuff, the sound design as far as synths is concerned, is actually in my personal camp. I actually like experimenting with these kinds of sounds too, and one of the things I think for saturation this track might benefit from is actually more, rather than a traditional saturator, would be an amp sim. Treat your bass and like a guitar, like a bass guitar, but with your synths, and choose a nice cabinet amp simulator of some sort, and maybe automate it a little bit as well, so you can add extra dynamics that way. Make it feel like the connection's a little bit more unstable than it would be if it was actually a real guitar plugged in, and you can get some really, really cool effects. This track will also benefit from a little bit of tempo automation too in places, where you can sort of slow down, give us have the bass just sort of edge out a bit and then impact, like a sort of a cinematic style impact, and then we're back into the chorus and it's go kind of thing. There's lots, especially since this track, I mean, it's 3.5 minutes, something like that, right?
2.5, I think.
2.5. So like you actually have a little bit of leeway, I think, to maybe even extend it a bit and give us a little bit more push and pull with your dynamics, without ruining the idea of the song, because it is very catchy.
It is.
And yeah, I mean, you'll have to send me the finished one when you've actually 100% happy with everything. If you are going to maybe take any suggestions here, I would love to hear like that sort of version where it is really, really just that maximum big bass and bounciness, because I mean it's a badass track and I love that sort of energy. It's sort of industrial but ravey, or dance, I think they'd probably call it.
Very much. All right, let's keep moving. We only have, I think, a handful left. Next up is Kusho looking for general feedback on their track Golden Eyelashes. Why is this doing this? All right, let's go.
That changes space and time.
Well, that was very, very unique. I did not expect that. That was definitely different than anything we had today. I really like that, like just the whole combination of things, and I did like the vocal processing as well. But I did find it a little bit sharp in just certain places, like on the S's, maybe a de-esser. Like it's possible that all that really cool, sparkly processing you have on the vocals is sort of emphasizing things that are sharp. So maybe just go back in and do like a little test of, you know, maybe possible resonant points, because in my headphones there was a couple of moments where it was a little bit hot, a little bit painful. But cool idea. Nathaniel, what do you think of that?
I mean, I think this is the strongest submission you've sent in. I mean, this is a much better showcase of your vocal abilities than the last thing I heard of yours, and that's really cool. I mean, it is really just a case of nailing that processing. You know, using de-essers and dynamic EQs, and making sure everything's sort of leveled and compressed in a way that gels them all together. Because right now, a few elements are sort of sitting in their own space, and I think glue compression would be useful on, especially on those drums, and maybe even relying a little bit more on sidechaining your bass, because while it's a very short stabby bass, there are still points where the tail is a little bit into your kick, and that can just be nipped and tucked a little bit. But I really like what you're doing here with your vocals. The aesthetic is right, it's just about perfecting what you're trying to do. Yeah, it's a really cool example of sort of synth pop, disco poppy kind of vibes, and it's a total throwback, but in a great way, because it's like feels familiar, but it's clearly still original. And it's also, I think, why I like this idea more than the last thing you put in, because this one has your stamp on it for sure, and I love that.
Agreed. Nata, what do you think?
I love the track. Very original. Like it's in this style of synthwave and kind of synth pop, which is, you know, all super trendy right now. But it is more very like 90s vibe to me than 80s, and I think that's quite refreshing. A couple of things jumped out to me. I felt like, again, like in a mix, there was just missing some high end was missing. Maybe again, it's just it could be bringing that synth, like the lead synth, up an octave. It was again just a bit too cramped and sort of the same note range with the vocal. And then on the vocal part, I think with tracks like this, it's important that your lyrics are legible, that you can, because it's you want people to sing along, to, you know, to dance and whatever. And I would perhaps again look at either lending vocal a bit stronger in a mix so that it's a bit more legible, or perhaps like parallel processing, so you have a bit of a more dry sound mixed in on top of the effects. But yeah, otherwise, like there's one more thing. I felt like you had some really cool drops in the track, and then I was hearing like some risers or some sort of like spatial ambient stuff happening, but it was kind of too far in the background. So again, I would maybe like double down on some of those like drops and like risers and bring them a bit more forward, just to give it a bit more like groove and power throughout.
Good points. Cool. We are getting down to the last few. Next up, we have J Lotto. Did they have any other things they were looking for?
Well, they did a swap on me as well, so they didn't supply any other feedback. The other one they said was partly finished or whatever, but I don't know if that applies to this one.
It says
so
rough
I guess
ideas.
surprise.
Rough ideas, so I think so. Yeah, really solid idea from Jay Lotto. I'll let Nata go first on this one. Why not? Change it up.
Sure, thank you. To catch a bass line like that, that's a cool hook. And nice, just very nice, like round sound. I really like that. And I was also hearing a really interesting melody, but it was like so far in the background. So I think there's some work to do on the mix, just like getting the levels of different parts and instruments in the right places to tie this up. But otherwise, yeah, cool idea, like hooky track. Well done.
Natty.
Do 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 do. And honestly, you've got the right ingredients here to really nail it, I think. I mean, obviously your second drop is effectively the same as the first one right now, and if you're going to keep interest, you are going to have to look at how you can involve that. I think as well the call and response melody that you have in your drop, when you transition out the first one into the sort of the breakdown, the response is a little bit off. You sort of just repeat yourself when you actually need to increase tension again by throwing yourself ever so slightly, either by going up a few more notes than you would otherwise, or going down a few more notes and then making us go underground, start taking advantage of filter automation, so it's sort of that sparse section becomes more like you're listening through a wall to a club that's that you're just about to enter, and then you can build back up into your second drop that way from this new lower energy point that then sounds deliberate rather than just empty. Because I mean that's something that people are noting in the chat right now, like earlier in that breakdown, it's a little bit too sparse, but you can guide us in the way that it sort of feels natural for it to be that sparse rather than something missing.
Yeah, good point. There is some, like, I like the dynamic idea where you're going, but it does need to be sort of balanced out. The one thing I noticed too is that some of your alternating bass lines, like the sort of hollowy one, is not as present as the saw. And like that's also a nature of the type of sound it is, but I think that you have to do some overall bass bus processing to smooth that out so that people don't notice it as much and that you can even that out. But that's something I think that will come with revising and working it out. So we only have a couple more, and I realized I totally forgot to do plugin of the week. So instead of plugin of the week, I want to just show you something, although it's being a little weird. It doesn't seem to want to show me what I want. Let me go back to here. I was going to show you some of what Nata does because I think it's so cool, and I want to know I want to know more about how she does it. So for some reason my screen share is like really, really big. I don't really know why, but let me just make it smaller instead of dealing with OBS right now. So this is a little clip from Nata's set at our thing. And sorry again, for some reason the resizing is being weird, but you'll notice she has these apples here and she's got MIDI attached to them. So I just wanted to show you a minute, and then maybe she can tell us like how she's doing that. That is so cool. So yeah, I mean, I've just been ever since. I'm like, how do you do that? What even is the technology? So like, yeah, so many questions. Like, does it sound different with different fruit? Is it just like tell us a little bit about that? And oh, by the way, if you want to subscribe to our YouTube, everyone, we're just getting started with it, but that's a short link that's scrolling on the screen, bit.ly/ILBC_YouTube. YT, all caps, and it just has some archives, including her whole set. But yeah, please tell us about these apples. So crazy.
Lish, thanks so much for the spotlight. Yeah, it's actually a really simple concept. Any of you who are into electrical engineering probably have come across Arduino boards and the like. It's a really simple concept, just based on the fact that anything can turn it into a media signal, and which also means you can then do all kinds of cool things with it. So I use out-of-the-box devices for this, made by Playtronica. Check them out. They just recently launched a new product of like a musical bouncing ball. But yeah, they do lots of really cool things with music and sort of like sound and electrical engineering. And yeah, like what I do with my sets, I hook up various objects. In this case it was apples. I also had a human on stage, and just experiment with what I can do with it. I think what I just find really powerful with it is obviously it adds to the dynamic of the performance, but depending on how you use the device, I'm finding that I'm able to generate some really interesting melodies that you can't do on a keyboard or any other MIDI controller or a synthesizer. So I call it sort of like controlled randomness, and it's super fun to play with. So yeah, happy to share kind of like more about it with anybody who's interested. You can contact me on my Instagram, which is at Nata with underscores. Yeah, and like I'm happy to show you guys more about it if you're interested.
Sorry, I was just
And I just had a weird image of you riding a horse that is plowing your MIDI set. You're like any living thing, and it. God, I have terrible idea.
The question, like the most popular question is like, would the sound different if I touch like a hand versus like a shoulder or a leg? And like I just tell people, I can make it work that way, but I'll have to chop you up. And I'm just like, people are like, what? Yeah, guys.
Whoa, that got dark.
Yeah. That got dark really quickly, and then I got me thinking like maybe I should get like a mannequin and like just kind of imitate that. Anyway, yeah, I told you guys it's like dark. It's
Wow.
dark
I think of you as a
so-
magician. Your whole stagecraft approach is like, I mean, maybe you should. Like, this is it. Your next trick will literally be sawing someone in half on stage.
Oh my god, I love
Yeah.
it. Natty, that's great. Okay, I need a magician collaborator. If there's anybody in the chat who knows how to like magically chop
Without-
humans' bodies without actually chopping them up, like get in touch with me, and
Yeah.
let's do.
It sounds like
cool
some kind of like
performance.
weird audio engineer horror movie. It's like these people just keep disappearing, and Nata has more and more shows, and like maybe each body count increases her social media followers. This is like a Jordan Peele movie starting out.
Oh my gosh.
By this.
I love it.
Okay, disclaimer: no humans have suffered. I'm gonna just add that no humans.
Yes,
have
that is
suffered.
a great quote for your press kit.
That's-
No human
it's all
has
good.
suffered. Next up, we actually have from our Bristol round, we have Daniel McPhee. He was contestant number 5, and he was doing some super cool stuff with a live violin and stuff. This is a track called 4 a.m. Did he have any specific feedback, Natty?
Yes, I made this song drunk at 4 a.m. about 5 years ago. Lost the file now, and the beat is very crazy and too complicated. But I want to know if it's worth attempting a remake.
Okay. This reminds me of like the underground worlds in Super Mario like 3, where you had to like climb and like knock the Koopas out. In a good way. I enjoyed that, and yes, I mean I think it's definitely worth reworking. Right now, it doesn't have a lot of focus, which is you were drunk, so makes total sense. So I really like the percussion, the main percussion, and I would almost like have that cut through everything and sort of take the focus, and then maybe focus on the lead as well. Because right now it is like has that like really fun idea vibe where you just like threw everything in and just kept throwing stuff in, and now you have to like carve away some space and take some turns and. I like the Hemingway. Was it really a Hemingway quote, or you weren't just joking, Nathaniel? Because
No, right drunk, edit sober is attributed to Ernest Hemingway. Yeah.
so much stuff is attributed to him. Like I mean, from what I gather, he just went around getting
he was a
drunk
notorious alcoholic
everywhere.
So
like in Spain, there's all these places where Hemingway ate or drank. Like pretty much like the guy every day. Was
most
just
of them
in
were
those
just
places.
drinking.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Nata, what do you think?
This is so funny. Like I have my little like stash of like tracks made drunk late at night. It's really brave of you to put this forward. Yeah, I mean it's good idea. It's got potential. Yeah, I think it needs a cohesion of a and maybe some like rhythmical variation, punctuation, just to add it, give it some more dynamics. But like solid idea to develop into something cool.
I mean, yeah, rebuild this one, and I think it's actually a really good thing to rebuild a track like this. I mean, you've lost the file, so obviously you have no choice. But you're also 5 years more experienced now, and I mean, like you can make all those objective decisions on this idea and say, okay, I like this moment here, but then I rush on. As you get more experience, I think people get more patient. They stop trying to rush to the next section. They let bits that are really good play out a little bit longer, as they deserve. And I mean, especially focus on this one, I think, on your percussive section. I mean, that has a very cinematic vibe so far. And there are a lot of libraries and things out there that I think could contribute to a vibe like this. Where, I mean, as a movie I'm thinking of, I've not seen, I remember hearing some of the score. It's one of these that are desert-y movies. Set in the Sahara or whatever. I can't remember which one it was. But it's got that kind of vibe with the percussion that I think you could lean into. Which, hey, I mean, it's like an alien invasion thing, maybe it's set in like outside Area 51 or whatever, where it's like, that's a rocky desert thing, isn't it? So
yeah, and if you've lost the file, sometimes you can actually just turn that to your advantage and like treat it like you're trying to remix a bootleg, right? And do all the fun things that come with like for the fact that you only have the master, so you can like chop that up and resample it and pitch it up and down, and you can get all those great things that come with only being limited with access to the master file. So I think that you can really have your fun with that. Don't worry about it too much and enjoy yourself and redo it. And like Nathaniel said,
maybe get drunk again.
Maybe get drunk again and have a good session like that. That's hilarious. So we are down to the last track in the queue. I'm really excited because Natty, you have been crystal clear and you have not been lagging the whole time, and not as Netflix limitations are causing a little lag, but I think it means that this new build works. I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting there with setting up ready for the next big stream.
So yeah, I mean, I think I want to just say like shouts out to everybody. Shouts out, thank you Nata for sitting here through all of the tracks and submissions tonight. And we are going to have one last track.
It's been super fun.
Yeah, thank you. We love having you. Come back anytime. We have
Yes.
Koru. What is the artist name here? I can't quite.
Well, they've given me two. Koru stroke Cole. Right now it seems to be Cole Dioke or Doke. Okie dokie. So I mean, I guess maybe they're still sort of working out what alias they want to run with. You'll have to tell us in the chat what your thoughts with that is. They say in the chat that sorry for the pain, lol. By the way, I know nothing about mixing and processing yet. Any tips are really helpful, and especially how to add vocals to this track. And yes, they're new. Sorry if it hurts your trained ears. Mine or not, unfortunately. But you gotta start somewhere. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be fine.
And bravo for putting yourself out there. Don't worry, we love you all, and we are excited. And thank you again. Last track of the night. Let's check it out, Cole. Wow.
Wow.
And I mean, starting out, that's crazy. That's so much better than I ever did. So, congratulations. I mean, I think just keep going. You have the right idea. Your arrangement sense is in the right place. You know, you're mixing, you have a lot of stuff going on. So, there's going to be stuff to learn about EQ. But for now, just keep making and learn and play. I mean, Nata, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was really, really strong composition. Like, you know, as a like musical idea that's got beginning and a concept. This is cohesive. I don't know whether like the lead with like a bit of a vocal in the background is a placeholder for like the vocals, and I assume that is. So I'm not gonna comment on like that being in there. I think like if you and once you have a vocal for it, just like the whole kind of like piece will make a little bit more sense in terms of where those lead sounds land. But one thing I was gonna say, it seems that you have quite a lot of like different instruments going on there, and it's about spacing them out. And I wanted to give like a suggestion for how you can learn a bit about the mixing and how to kind of start thinking about the approach on this. There's a great series, well, 2 videos by Dave Gibson on YouTube, and some of you guys might know those. They're just like, they just cover such great basics around how to mix a track and what is a sound room and sort of how to think about the space with sound. So just highly recommend you to watch those if you haven't already, and I think that's gonna kind of giving you some ideas as to how you organize your different instruments within this track.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice. Well done.
Great tip.
Keep going.
Great tip. Natty, any other just starting out feedback?
I mean, well, there's a couple of little neat tricks at least that I can share in response to some feedback from the chat. Airlift said that they're not really a fan of slow fade-ins, and I mean, I think they can work. It depends on what you're doing. If it's a progressive track, slow fade-ins can work quite nicely. But for something like this, where it's sort of punchy and poppy, most DAWs, as far as I'm aware, support different types of object fade-in. Now on my DAW at least, Samplitude, I can choose between your average sort of gradient that looks like an arch up, like slope up and a slope down. It's sort of just straight out, like no change. But I can also change it to what looks like a logarithmic graph, so it's like whoop, or an exponential graph. And I think in this case, it's the exponential version that you want. So it's going. So you can have a sort of fade in, but it's more like a. And then it starts hitting in your lead. If you want to do something like that, that would look, and it should be in your object control parameters where, like that bit when you've tugged to add a fade in, you can right click on these things and change what type of fade in it's doing, and that's a place to start. The other thing would be just to have fun with your bass sound design. I think with this sort of track, you're trying to go sort of dubsteppy in the middle there. And dubstep benefits a lot from just being weird. So don't really worry about whether you're doing it right or not. Just experiment. And also, you said you downloaded a load of plugins. Please stop downloading plugins now. No more. See if you can work your way through the plugins you have. Find the ones that seem interesting and spend a couple of weeks just focused on learning each of those plugins inside and out. Because if you keep trying to download plugins to fix things that you don't understand yet, you'll never really master any of the plugins that you actually might already have that would achieve the effects you want. And also, if you need to ask any questions, come along to places like EDMP. Everyone's all happy to help. You know, if you say, I want to achieve this and I have that, how do I do in that? I'm sure somebody will know the answer.
Yeah, please. We are there all the time. I mean, not both of us, but there's a healthy global user base, and there's always somebody to help or to hang out with or to give you life advice or talk about workouts and recipes. We are an all-inclusive sort of thing. So special thanks to Nata and First. Check her out on social media. Thanks as always to Nathaniel for being brilliant. Any last words, friends?
You first, Nata.
Well, I want to say thanks. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me tonight. It's been a super fun evening. I've really enjoyed listening to everyone's tracks. Really impressed by kind of the variety and the quality that everybody has put forward. Huge kudos to anyone who put out for the first time. I think that's the most important. One of the most important milestones in like music production, and once that's done, there's no way back. So like give yourself a round of applause. You've done a great job. So yeah, and let's stay in touch. I'd love to keep
Thank you.
Talking
Been
to
a
you
pleasure
guys,
having
like
you
I followed
here.
some of you
I've
on
got a quick
Instagram,
thing as
so,
well.
Yeah, it's been a great pleasure.
Due to various travel conflicts, I will be hosting Feedback and Friends again, hopefully with a few less technical bugs this time, on August the 10th. If you would like to appear, and that goes for you too, Nata, if you want to come back on, then I'm looking for a couple of guests to come join me, and we can do this like all over again. Every
Way.
week. Now guys, miss the session if we can help it.
Yeah, we are here every week, and also coming up August 14th will be the She Knows Tech round of ILBC, which is going to be very exciting. So just going to say again, if you know a female or non-binary producer / performer who could do some fun live stuff, we are having a round at the She Knows Tech Summit, and we still need contestants. So go to ilbc.tv. There's more information about it there, and we hope to see all of you every week. There will be workshops coming up. I mean, just subscribe to our Twitch if you haven't already. There's also a Google Calendar embedded in there with anything we have coming up. So thank you again, and have a very good night.